right, we're back on One True Podcast. It's Brice and Zach and our good friend Jerry Hill. Jelly in the house.
He's back.
He's back. You know him, the man, the myth, the legend. Jerry, how the heck are you?
Man, Brice, I couldn't be much better. Had lunch with some of my buddies this week and even had a free lunch. They say there's no free lunch, but I had a free lunch this week. So I'm feeling good. We got a bye week. So, yeah, this is a good week.
Guess who Chad Conine had lunch with yesterday?
Chad Conine. Some Midway friend?
That's a good guess. Jimmy Barnes, who will see.
Jimmy Barnes. That was actually one I was thinking about when we got that lunch together. Was like, I wonder if he could make it down from.
Yeah, so I think if you want to stick around after the TCU game, I think we may try to go to Kincaid's after for dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he should be at Amon Carter in a couple weekends. So. Okay. Well, guys, let's talk some Baylor football on a bye week here, kind of mid-season. So Baylor goes into the bye with a 4-2 record, and yet I wouldn't say much like last year, because obviously they were 2-4 going into the bye last year, but I do feel like they go into this thing with just a little angst. Unfulfilled expectations. That probably says something about the expectations around this team. And we saw what happened last year after the bye. They go on this great winning streak. They play probably their best football of the season, easily. So my question to you, and I'm going to give these responses to you so that you can bubble them in, Scantron test style. But how likely is it that Baylor goes on a similar run to end this season? Is it not likely at all? Somewhat likely? Pretty good shot? Or guaranteed lock? Lock it in. They're going to win their last 6. What do you say?
Jerry, lead us off, please.
Well, and I'll say, are they going to go 6-0? I think it's highly unlikely, I guess. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I will say with the schedule that they have, and we've talked about it, we thought at the beginning of the season that this was really kind of the lighter half, and, this is where they would make their hay, that kind of thing. It's a much tougher schedule than we had thought going in. And I believe I did the math just now. I think those 6 teams are 27-5, something like that. Now, I will say they don't play any ranked teams, or at least teams that are ranked right now. They don't play any ranked teams the rest of the way. So that says, yeah, it's possible. But just because of how the first half has gone. Now, I will say, Brice, you talked about that angst. I think there was a whole lot more angst last year when you're 2-4 and 0-3.
Yeah.
But so I don't know that there's as much angst as there was then, but there's also less pressure, I guess, because you're not sitting there at 2-4. You only have to win a couple of games to get into a bowl game. If you go, say, 5-1, you've got a shot at going to the Big 12 championship game. So I think there's less pressure on this team. But again, tough schedule, several tough road games. So it's going to be tough to match last year's finish.
Gotcha. Zach?
To me, I'm going to say there's frankly a pretty good shot. I think last year, think back to last year, and there was so many questions leading up to the bye week about the offensive line. And I know, this year, there was so much pressure on the offensive line to kind of live up to kind of what they did to end the year. And frankly, the offensive line has not done that. I know that, Omar-Aigbedion has been in and out with some injuries, and I kind of expect him to be healthy once they come back from the bye week. Sidney Fugar, left tackle, has been almost rotating with Sean Tompkins, and so they really need to lock in up front on the offensive line, because again, we saw what that did for them last year. And I think that maybe the bye week they'll be able to clean some things up, maybe get some semblance of a running game going, and continue this offensive explosion that Sawyer Robertson and the receivers have been able to kind of carry this team up to this point. So I think it's a pretty good shot, because I have faith in Mason Miller. I have faith in that experienced offensive line to kind of, in a similar fashion to last year, kind of propel them into this second half of the season.
Wow, you've slept a little since Saturday, because
Right?
I don't remember you you being quite so optimistic.
I talked to the Optimist Club yesterday, so I'm just
there we
bathing
go.
in it. I am
There we
bathing
go.
in it, and I'm back to my, a week off does good things for the soul. It's like chicken soup, noodle soup.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am back to my optimistic ways, and I don't know.
I'll say somewhat likely, which sounds like probably where Jerry was landing too. I don't think any of us necessarily think it's not likely at all. And I don't think any of us would necessarily say it's a guarantee. You can't really guarantee anything. But so somewhere in the middle, I'll follow a little less than pretty good shot, just because if we're talking about similar run to last year, well, that's talking about going 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a challenge. Suddenly the Cincinnati game looks tougher. And we'll talk more about Baylor TCU here in a minute, but that's never an easy place to play. So I think, I look at it more like 4-2, like 8-4 season. I mean, which is not bad at all, obviously. I just think that this team went in to this season with such high expectations and a goal of making the Big 12 championship game that they would probably feel a little disappointed if that was the case, 8-4. But we'll see how it plays out. So as we sit here today on October the 8th, Sawyer Robertson leads the country in passing yards. He leads the country in passing touchdowns. There may be some other things in there that he leads. I just looked up those two just to confirm.
I think points responsible for too.
Yeah, points responsible. There you go. Obviously having just an incredible senior season, the Baylor quarterback. So he's been, in the conversation throughout the year on different lists for the Heisman Trophy. Those things sort of vacillate from week to week. They're kind of like an AP poll, so to speak. But what's the best case scenario for Sawyer to make it to the Downtown Athletic Club as one of those Heisman finalists? And then also kind of building off of that, like when you think about Sawyer and his legacy at Baylor, what does he mean to this school, to this program?
I like West to you this time, Zach.
Well, I think for Sawyer to get to New York, Baylor needs to have the kind of finish to the season that it did last year, because I mean, like, he can put up, like incredible video game type numbers. He can keep doing that, and I kind of think he needs to for Baylor to, get to where they want to go. But unless Baylor is in the Big 12 championship game, they don't maybe not have to be a playoff team, but they have to have some momentum, maybe get in the AP, the top 25, get some publication, on ESPN. Like, I think, like, Baylor has to do some winning for him to get to New York, because I think he is going to take care of the rest himself, just with the way that kind of he goes about it. And, he's going to always give his teammates the props and do all the things that I think are going to maybe play well on social media and do all that. So for Sawyer Robertson to get himself to New York and be a Heisman finalist, A, he needs to keep doing what he's doing, which I have a ton of faith in, and B, Baylor needs to win, which I have, as I said before, pretty good faith in. But maybe not as much as I do Sawyer individually.
Mm. Jerry?
Brice, can I do the he took my answer?
That's fine.
I figured I'll leave.
You saw
guys
the
can
other
talk
day
about-
when he took my question, I had a backup in the holster. You always have to have a backup.
You guys can talk about legacy. You know more. You've been around longer than I have. Not to call you guys old, but
it's true.
We are. Brice, I'll just say I agree with Zach that, I mean, you got to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, honestly, RG3 was a little bit of an anomaly because they were only 9-3 that year, you know?
Yeah.
But I think part of it was
10-3 after the bowl game.
Yeah, after the bowl. But I think part of that was kind of the way he finished the season, you know, beating Oklahoma like they did, you know, beating Texas. I mean, those were huge wins. But early in that year, they had some really bad losses, like lopsided losses.
Yeah, and I also think Baylor was in a, not to interrupt you, but was in a much different place back then.
Yeah.
And so it felt like 9-3 at Baylor, like from where they had come, Robert helped bring them from the dregs, you know? I mean, before he got there, there was a 16-year bowl drought. So, yeah, I agree. Like that 9-3 hit different with Robert, you know, than it would with Sawyer. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But you know, back to Sawyer, I haven't seen any lately that have him like really high up there or anything. But I mean, like you talked about, Brice, he's leading the nation in passing. You know, sometimes those things are important. But I think so much rides on what Baylor's win-loss record is. I mean, Sawyer could pass for 5,000 yards, but if they're, like we talked about, if they're 8-4, he ain't going to New York. So I do think, you know, if they did match last year's finish, and I was thinking about this as we were talking, if they match last year's finish, it's actually an 8-0 run. So I don't know if that's possible, honestly, guys. But if they did something like that, he gets to New York in my mind. I mean, with what he's done, and then in terms of them kind of running the table, getting to the Big 12 championship game, I think he would at least be in New York. I don't know that he wins the Heisman, but I think he would be in New York.
How about that second part of that question, Jerry? Like when you think you've seen a lot of special players at Baylor, you know, where does Sawyer kind of fall into that? I mean, I feel like he's one of those, you know?
For sure. I mean, and he's almost kind of in a different category because he started his career somewhere else and then came here. But Brice, if you think about it, this is just from my perspective. He's Baylor. Like that's when I think of Sawyer and I think of his legacy and what he's done and his character and all of that, he is Baylor. So I think particularly depending on how this season goes, he will go down as one of the all-time greats, partly because of that, but partly because of what he's doing on the field. I mean, he's tearing it up on the field. Now, I will say, I give credit to some of that for some of those receivers, particularly Michael Trigg. Like, he's completed how many ever percentage of his passes, but Michael Trigg has really helped that. So I think the receivers have helped him. But yeah, in terms of legacy, you know, if he gets them, you know, back, well, certainly if he got them to the Big 12 championship game, and then if he got them in the CFP playoffs, you know, he's ranking right up there. And, you know, I don't know that I could ever put anybody ahead of RG3 just because he was the first and, you know, likely the only. But I would put him in that next echelon with, say, Brice Petty, who won 2 back-to-back Big 12 championships. I would put him, you know, in there. You know, certainly the guys that won conference championships way back in the days with the Jeffrey brothers. But to me, it would be RG3. And then, like I said, if they really finish hot and finish, say, 11-2 or something, I would put him in that next category with Brice Petty. And both of them, in my mind, are really good Baylor guys too.
Yeah, you can't help but admire the dude. He's just a good guy. I attended the FCA, the local Heart of Texas FCA banquet earlier this year, and there's Sawyer getting an award from the FCA, and he's visible, you know, he's approachable. he's a good teammate. Like, yeah, I mean, he's everything you want. And here's my, I've done it before and I'm going to do it again, but here's my finger wagging moment at the Baylor fans. Get your butt to the stadium and appreciate these guys, these seniors especially, because you only have so much more of them. So that's what I'll say about that.
And I don't want to throw a wet blanket on it even more, but I'm going to. It seems like I think back to like last year, and like I know Deion Sanders is completely different from dave-aranda, but it seems like every time he was asked about Travis Hunter, he was like, "This is a Heisman. This is a Heisman." Like he was like singing that from the rafters. And I can think back, wasn't it Ed Oliver that had like a big campaign and sent out?
Yeah, I still have an Ed Oliver bobblehead somewhere.
like I don't know if dave-aranda is someone to like do that, and I think that I think for Sawyer's Heisman campaign, to go back to that part of the question, I think he might need a little boost.
Oof.
Yeah,
oof. Yeah. Well,
and like, can Dave do that? Will Baylor do that? I don't know.
Even back then, so Jerry can remember Baylor communications and the SIDs, the marketing, and all of those people. But boy, they put on the blitz for Robert and did a really good job of getting his name out there. There were cards. Jerry, remember the cards that they sent out, little trading cards and stuff. And here's what I'll say. I just think like if Baylor wins a couple, 2, 3 more in a row, I think that's when Baylor would need to sort of like dial up the heat on the campaign, and Dave, like you said, would probably somebody would coach Dave up and say, "Hey, talk him up, man." So yeah. After this week, we have Baylor TCU up there in Fort Worth. I mean, obviously, this series has given us some all-time classics. Scores that are etched in the memory of probably both fan bases. And last year was pretty good, wasn't it? I mean, was that last year a field goal game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Walk off
field goal.
Or last second or something. Yeah.
Right. So what do you guys think? I mean, it seems like this series is always very competitive. I mean, TCU had a run there fairly recently where it was on a pretty good heater in the series, but Baylor obviously nullified that last year. Do you think this Baylor TCU game will be another classic?
I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be fantastic. I do. Just only because of what these two quarterbacks can do and what these two offenses are capable of. And I guess the kind of what these defenses kind of aren't capable of. Looking back at some of TCU's recent results against Arizona State and Colorado, and they lost at Arizona State, but they beat Colorado, and I think I don't know. There's to me it leans another shootout, another high scoring game, another back and forth, and kind of Josh Hoover and Sawyer Robertson just kind of going at each other. And just kind of going back and forth. And to me, that's going to be leads to a memorable and game that is memorable and high scoring. And so yes, I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm very fascinated to see what TCU does this week against Kansas State, coming off of the loss that Baylor put on them on Kansas State. So I think it leads. There's a lot of storylines, and I think it leads to another great game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you think about it, and you're right, Brice, the series overall is very close. TCU has kind of dominated a lot in probably the last decade. But even in those years, there's been some great games. Like I remember the year that TCU was awful, and I think it was 19. And they were not going to a bowl, and Baylor had to have like almost kind of a miraculous finish to beat them. Had an interception in the end zone or something when they were in position to maybe either win or tie it with a field goal. So just games like that. Well, and then even going back to the 21 season when Gary Patterson had been fired, and you're like, and Baylor's headed to the Big 12 championship game. So Baylor's definitely going to roll over these guys, and it wound up
Nope.
being a TCU win. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. So there's been some funky games like that where, it is really one of those where you can kind of throw out the records in that case. But back to Zach's point, I mean, and you can't always go by scores, but it was the exact same score with Arizona State. Like it, and granted, Baylor was at home, TCU was on the road, but the exact same score. So I think it's going to be a fairly even game, a coin flip type game. Now, again, let's see what they do this week against K-State. Baylor coming off the bye, that's always or usually an advantage. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. But I expect that same type of game. I'd be surprised if it's not close.
Yeah, this series just always produces some weird stuff, And Jerry mentioned the 21 thing. Baylor plays TCU right after parting ways with Gary Patterson, and I call it the Chandler Morris game because it was his debut, and he goes off and completely stuns Baylor. And the weird thing I'll never forget about that one, and I've mentioned it before, but John and I are sitting there in the press box, and there's this guy like 2 rows, down from the press box, and he looks so much like Gary Patterson, and I was like, is he here? Is he scouting? Is he watching? Like, what's he doing? And I did take a picture of him. Zach, I did find that picture, so I need to send that to you. But yeah, good stuff. We'll see. I think it's going to be a great game. I agree with y'all. So when Zach redid some of the graphics for our podcast over the summer, he put a basketball on the little graphic for the podcast. So that means it's open season. I'm taking that basketball and I'm dribbling it, baby. Basketball's coming fast. In fact, Friday we have a Baylor men's exhibition, the Drew Bowl, Scott versus Brice, Baylor versus Grand Canyon. So guys, obviously some remade teams here, very much so on the men's side. The women do have, some key returners back, but what do you feel like the ceiling is for nicki-collen's team and Scott Drew's team in 2026? Jerry,
talk about Scott Drew, because that, like, I'm curious from your end, Brice, who has better shoe game, Scott Drew or Brice Drew? I know Bryce Cherry has great shoe game, but who has better shoe game between the Drew brothers?
Well,
before you get into the analytics.
Baylor, I think it's just pretty much standard part of their uniform are those Air Jordans, those low cut Jordans. And you can't go wrong with that. Like, that's a classic. So I don't know what Brice wears, so I'll have to do some more investigating on Friday.
Report back. That's a big storyline, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Jerry.
Well, and Brice Drew's a little younger too, so he's probably a little more hip than Scott. I don't know that Scott was
and
even
a
hip
former
at 32.
Houston Rocket, Brice Drew. There you
That's
go.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that Scott was even hip when he came here at 32. So Brice definitely has him on that. But yeah, I'll start with the men. I don't know. Let's put it that way. Now, Brice, what I saw in Germany leads me to believe they could be good. And they didn't have 3 or 4 of their top players. So I think the potential is there to be really good. I think the talent is there. It's just, how do you blend all those new guys in? Crazy that, nobody who played last year is returning. So you are talking about a completely different team. I do think it helps that they played in Germany. They have that experience together. Granted, 3 or 4 of the top guys were not there. But again, I think if you can blend all that, I think the potential is there. I think the talent is there. What's the ceiling? I would say Sweet 16 would be my guess.
And they haven't been to the second weekend since
Right.
the national championship year, and to me, that would be progress.
Yeah, and like I said, I think, and I don't know that that's a ceiling, but I think this team is capable of that. Let's put it that way. Maybe they can do more. I don't know, but if they could get, like you said, if they could get to that second weekend, that's a big step for a team with no returning players.
I'll chime in on them since I cover those guys too, and I think that Jerry's right that the correct answer is I don't know. I mean, right. I don't know how you could know with a completely new team, but that did some good things in Germany, and as Jerry noted, I mean, to me, not just missing several of your players, but several of potentially your best players.
Yeah.
Michael Rataj, I think, has the chance to probably be Baylor's best player. Maybe if he's not, maybe it's Tounde, who certainly, very highly regarded in the, in the recruiting cycle and stuff. I mean, super athletic, won the dunk contest at the McDonald's All-American game. I did ask him, by the way, that day that we had the media, Jerry, I said, if you get a breakaway, are you going to, you're going to show the fans something? And he was like, oh, for sure. For sure. I like his accent.
Yeah.
I think, here's what I think. They have the potential to be deeper. I mean, they should be deeper. On paper, they're certainly deeper. So that's a big plus because obviously last year, they were putting it together with bubble gum and spit for a while. I mean, it was 6-7 man rotation. And here's where the Baylor program has not been great since the national championship year. I would say they haven't been super strong defensively. And I think this team might have more potential defensively. We'll see. But for one, if you start with Jocelyn Bodo, two-time Big South Defensive Player of the Year, I think has the chance to be a rim protector that they haven't had in a while. So that's a good start. I think Tounde, I mentioned, talking to him, I asked what his expectations, his goals were for himself. The first thing he mentions, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Like, I was going, okay, like, that's different, and so I think that's an area of the game that he really embraces. So yeah, we'll see. We're going to learn a lot, probably through non-conference because they have another good non-conference schedule. Zach, how about nicki-collen's team?
I have super high hopes for nicki-collen's team. I think that I think they are a Final Four team. Certainly. I think darianna-littlepage-buggs is in for a huge year. She spent the summer with Team USA and kind of got a taste of that. Didn't make the team ultimately, but got a taste of that. She was certainly kind of the focal point of the team last year at many points. I know that they are replacing a lot of seniors. Sarah Andrews, Jada Walker are gone. Aaronette Vonleh gone. But they bring in some big name transfers from Auburn. Talia Scott, they brought in the Auburn coach to help with kind of the recruiting side of things. And I think with Bella and Buggs kind of as that 1-2, man, I really think the sky is the limit. And I know that they're going to look a little different because, I think that they have maybe some issues with like who's going to play center, who's going to get the big minutes of the five. Are you going to rely on Kyla Abraham to do that? She took some steps last year, but she wasn't always the most dependable in that spot. So, but I kind of trust nicki-collen to be able to kind of tinker and figure out the right lineup and get them to where they're a very competitive team, because I certainly think they have the pieces. It's just, can you find the right lineup and the right matchup to get to the Final Four? But I certainly think they have the talent and the experience to go that far.
I think Bella could be in for a big year, and here's
Mhm.
why. Here's my reasoning on that. She won't be shackled by being a student in Jerry Hill's sports writing class. Like, she's free, she's clear, she's loving life. She's not got Professor Jerry breathing down her neck anymore. So yeah, big year for Bella Fauntleroy. I'm calling it.
The shackles are off. I like that. Man, I would like to have that kind of optimism, and I think they're certainly capable of it. One thing I like, Zach, as you mentioned, I think it's good that they got some P4 players.
Mhm.
I think they relied too much in the last 2 or 3 years on those mid majors. Good players, but I think it's, if you go back to when they were coming out of high school, these were much more highly recruited players. So I think you're getting players with talent that either weren't a great fit at their previous school, or just for whatever reason it didn't work out. So I think the talent is much more, in my mind, is much more than it has been. I do agree with you, though. There is question at 5. I think there might be question at 1, and it may come down to who plays there. Now, I don't know that Talia is necessarily a true 1, but that would be my guess. But you've got Jana Van Heaton coming back as well off of her knee surgery. So, man, I do think they're going to be a lot deeper. And again, I'm anxious to see them play. And like the men, you got to figure out how all those parts blend together, because there are a lot of parts, a lot of talent, and Nikki's just got to put all that together. But helps having a coach like Coach Harris, that was a head coach herself. Santoni Green. I mean, she's got a great coaching staff as well. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully, they both end up in the Final Four. But my ceiling for them, I think, would be Elite Eight. But I'll hope for Final Four.
There you go. That'd be fun. Sure would be
Yeah.
fun. Well, buckle up, because it's coming. November is always nuts, y'all. I mean, we get that confluence of football and basketball coming together, and yeah, it's kind of like a preview of March Madness or something. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. But at any rate, thank you to the director of Baylor sports journalism, Jerry Hill, for, what is your official title?
That's it. Director of Sports Journalism for Baylor
I
Athletics.
got it right.
And you can just call me Professor if you want.
That's what J-Mo calls you.
Yeah, every time.
I love it.
Cross country SID.
Thank you,
That's what I'm
Professor,
calling
for coming on with us. And you can give us our grade on this podcast later. So appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. This was fun.